Good evening and welcome back to the Chew Digest Studio. I'm Michael Loomis, glad to be hanging out here with you on this Thursday night. Getting close to my wind down time. I had a busy day today. Got to walk over to Long Beach City College in my morning walk to stop and speak to my ASU local advisor, and just trying to get some last minute things worked out with my fall 2026 classes right now to make sure that I am maintaining what they call, what is it? Satisfactory academic progress. Our federal government over there in Washington, D.C., they like to give students a lot of money for their education. Living in the state of California, even more so. However, that's only at the uh, junior college level. But uh, the federal government, they will still give you um, grant money for up to 6 years worth of your education, which quite frankly is a lot of money. They invest in our future, I assume, with the expectation that it'll make us better taxpayers. So in reality, they are not just giving us free money. What they're doing is they're turning us into better tax generating human resources that will easily pay back in taxes more than what they doled out in FAFSA benefits. That's my thought on the subject, anyways. I am a full time student at 53, yes, 53 years of age. I am kind of surprised they don't cut off that at a certain point. I know that for me as a student, um, when it comes to getting scholarship money, and when I search for scholarships, they are really hard to find for somebody that matches my demographic and is over 49 years of age. Because I think what they do is they look at you and they say, well, we're not going to get a whole lot of bang out of our buck for somebody that's going to be retiring, feasibly or possibly within the next 10, 15 years. Uh, but the reality is this is just where we're at in the world today because of technology. Our skill sets have been taken away from us because of technology, and I'm totally okay with that. I say the quicker you can eliminate all of our jobs, the better, because the reality is that's kind of our future, whether we want it to be or not. And I honestly scratch my head when people sit there and think, but what about money? What about jobs? I'm like, well, I imagine they will work out that solution as as the powers that be continue to embrace technology that is eliminating entry level and mid level jobs. I mean, even today, I read that Sam Altman literally cut somewhere like 40 or 50% of his staff at one of his tech companies. Jeff Bezos cut a huge swath of, Amazon employees again. And this stuff is happening at insane rates of speed. And so I know for a lot of us, it's confusing. Like, what's happening? What's going on? And, what happens when, the all of the driving jobs are gone and some 30 million Americans, some 10% of all American jobs are just going to just disappear because of self-driving vehicles. Totally okay, because the fact of the matter is, humans behind the wheel, it's like mass slaughter of human beings all day long, every day, ever since vehicles have been created. And no matter how hard they try, autonomous vehicles driven by computers, they are safer by leaps and bounds than human being drivers. I mean, yes, there's always going to be somebody that ends up in a bad place, and there will always we will always suffer injury and death when there's heavy machinery involved. That's just the nature of soft human beings with flesh and bone and blood interacting with literal cruise missiles that, can travel at all manner of speeds, or heavy lifting equipment that can run you over and not even feel that it ran you over. Just avoid those situations where you might be in what's called the bite. But nonetheless, we are moving swiftly towards a world that looks a lot more like the Garden of Eden, where we're not going to have to be sweating and working exceedingly hard for jobs that robotics, automation, and artificial intelligence are going to be able to do for us. We may not understand how that is all going to play out, but I can guarantee you, and I assure you, that there are a lot of minds that are coming together to deal with this right now and trying to figure out what that's going to look like, because the reality is we're at a strong inflection point where mankind is going to have to walk away from the idea that our job and employment is something that gives us value. Uh, there's gonna have to be other things we look at, and quite frankly, I mean, I haven't had to work in a lot of years myself, and that's part of the reason why I'm going to school full time. Is, aside from the reality that I have not been a full-time employee somewhere since about 2008, because of an injury I had at a job, and I was on disability for 18 months, and I came out of that self-employed and self-sufficient. And once you've done that for any length of time, it is really hard to want to go back and being a full-time employee somewhere. It's like going from being a slave to being a free man, to then wanting to go back and say, hey, I want to be a slave again. Doesn't happen. Anyways, enough of that talk. I got out today to do my 4-mile walk. I did 2 miles over to Long Beach City College, had my 15-minute meeting with my success coach, and then made a 2-mile trek back home. A lot of what I do on those walks is I will sometimes listen to music, more times than not. I will be watching, or not watching, but listening to videos here on YouTube. Tried to point, didn't realize the camera was going to have me backwards. YouTube. How about that? Anyways, and one of those lectures I listened to today was about walking, of all things. And the concept that was brought up by this person was that she brought up this idea of vitamin W, the most overlooked nutrient that it probably plays the most influential role in what we call longevity and or health span. Brought up the idea that people that are actually utilizing their feet to walk a good 4 or 5 miles a day have a tendency to live 10 to 15 years longer than those that don't. And that to me was just mind blowing. And, in a lot of ways, it makes sense. Fix your feet. Guess what? You're going to be fixing your life. And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, we are bipeds for a reason. Okay. Not because we, enjoyed sitting around and just wanted to get up and stand up occasionally. It's because we probably had to by not by nature so much as nurture in the world that we lived in. We had to spend a lot of time walking every day, either to hunt or to gather food. And so we also probably had to spend a lot of time moving around as nomadic creatures because, food would run out eventually where we were at. And so what did we have to do? We had to move. Not convenient if you're down on all fours unless you're a horse. And horse is a horse, of course, but we are not. And I'm okay with that because I'm somebody that's actually pretty well okay with getting out and going on a walk every morning, and not something I ever really spent much time doing in my entire life until this last year. I started off in September and now I'm up to about 500 miles, which is a pretty significant lifestyle change. I got a really nice pair of shoes. They, as a matter of fact, here they are. Topo is the brand. No, I am not endorsed by them. I am just a user of their products. As you can see, they have a Vibram sole. What does that mean? It means that they can actually absorb quite a bit of pounding. And as you can see, the bottom is very well designed to, these things grip. They grip like they're meant to be walking on rough road. And this is almost 500 miles worth of wear on these shoes. And as you'll notice, they're kind of like Ronald McDonald clown shoes. They have a very wide toe box, which is something I highly recommend if you're going to be out walking. And, try to avoid getting those shoes that are too overly rounded on the bottom. You want to still have at least some basis for your feet to have a natural movement. Honestly, it would probably be best if we could walk around without shoes on at all whatsoever. But I live in a city and it's all concrete or blacktop, and I don't frankly want to step on something and end up with an injury to the bottom of my foot that prevents me from walking. But aside from that, what if walking isn't exercise? What if it were a vitamin? What if most of our physical and mental problems aren't because something is broken, but because we are deficient in vitamin W? And that blew me away today when I heard that question asked. And, I've been looking at how the human body works and how it functions the best, and what things can we do, what can we eat, what kind of relaxation do we need, what kind of sleep do we need, what kind of foods, all this stuff, right? And there are a lot of things that can, if you do them the right way, they can prevent the progress of disease, not necessarily fix disease, but prevent the progress of it. And walking isn't something that we do to fix disease, it's something we were designed to do daily in order to remain functional. And instead of asking, what's wrong with me, ask, am I deficient in walking? Think about that. Do you have a walking deficiency? Are you walking 7, 8, 9,000 steps a day? I mean, I'm not going to say 10,000 steps a day because I'm not a company selling a pedometer. But are you actually walking enough? And the reality is the biggest the biggest effector of health is not in walking 7 to 10,000 steps a day. It's that initial getting up off your butt from the chair you're sitting in and walking around the block once. That will affect the most amount of change in your life. And then everything else on top of that is icing on the cake. And if you can get 10 to 12,000 steps in a day, that's like the sprinkles on the icing on the cake. And, because we are living in a time where, quite frankly, a sedentary life is not natural, it's not neutral, it's subtractive. They suggest that it is, there are some out there that would suggest that being sedentary and not walking and sitting at a desk all day is the new smoking. It is the new factor that is affecting our health the most. And so, what I'm getting at is you don't add walking to fix a problem, you remove a walking deficiency. Okay. You go to the root of the problem. If you're not walking, fix it. And, frankly, this is not so much in our modern context, but for all of mankind, our lives would have depended on us walking. Okay. And walking most likely with bare feet or with sandals where our toes are actually splayed more like this instead of being bound up in shoes like this. And the reality is, from what I understand, our toes should be our widest point on our foot. And the reason why is because you have your little toe over here and your big toe over here, and then you have your heel down here. And in reality, they are kind of like a triangle that you when you take one step after another, they wrong sign. That was rock and roll, baby. Um, but they're kind of like, they're the platforms that keep you standing upright. And as a result of that, and probably the lifetime of walking that we did over many millennia, our bodies adapted and grew and evolved as a moving circulation, lymphatic, a system that our biology is based on movement, circulation, lymphatic flow, fascia, what they call fascia glide. In other words, that all of that connective tissue and all the tissue that's in between things like our bones and our muscles and our skin that allows for all those things to glide freely within their confined space. Nervous system regulation. And, if all those things are working the way they're supposed to, they are going to improve our longevity. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm sharing this information with you. And so Another thought that I had is that this is no different really from, how it is that you grow a healthy plant or a healthy tree. Is you don't focus on the top of the tree, you don't focus on the top of the plant per se, but if you can focus on the root system, and you can ensure that you're doing everything to promote the growth of a healthy root system, everything else above the ground that you can see will take care of itself. Literally take care of itself. And so, if you want to get faster, you want to stay stronger, you want to stay healthier, you want to sleep better, you want to not fall over, start with your feet. I've said for quite some time in many conversations with people over the years that our feet, when it comes to our body, are our furthest dependent. They are the part of our body that is furthest away from our heart and furthest away from our mind, and so our brain, not our mind. And as such, if they are healthy, if your feet are healthy, if they don't have bunions, if they don't have gout, if they don't have ingrown toenails, if they don't have toenail fungus, if they don't have athlete's foot, you're probably in pretty good shape and pretty healthy, as long as they also don't have edema. You don't want any kind of fluid retention in your lower legs. And one of the best things you can do to prevent that is actually walking, because all of those muscles in your legs, and especially your calves, are going to be the pumps that get those fluids moving and back into the circulatory system where they need to be. When it comes to working out, when you go to the gym and you see people there that are new, that are getting started, quite frankly, a lot of the time they start from the top down. They start with, doing bicep and tricep exercises. They want bigger shoulders. They work on their shoulders. They want a bigger chest. They work on their chest, their back, their abdomen. They want their six pack. And they spend very little time on their legs, when it should be the other way around. Start off heavy and get stronger with your calves. Work your way up your legs, and still do all those other things. But I guarantee you, if you focus more on what's below your waist, the better off you're going to be. Below your waistband, below your belt, that's where 60% of your lean mass lie. That's where, when you want to make big changes in your body, that's going to be the source of those big changes. And so, to kind of wrap that up, I'd like to kind of point out that weak feet leads to unstable ankles, which leads to compromised knees, which then leads to hip problems, spine problems, posture problems, breathing problems, and nervous system problems. From the ground up, right there, better foot mechanics equal better signal to the brain. Better signal equals better movement equals better health. And that builds better into my system of understanding how our body works as a fluid dynamics, a dynamic fluid-based system that really needs to maintain a healthy circulation. And I'm not just talking about in your veins, I'm talking about all of the fluids throughout your body, whether it's in your brain, your cerebrospinal fluid, the interstitial fluids in between your cells inside of all your soft tissues, your intracellular fluids, the fluids that make up the inside of the cells, all of it. Anyways, I also wanted to talk to you a little bit today about words and, how important it is that we pay very close attention to what it is that we say, not only because of other people, but also because it has to come from here. And if we have to think about it here before it comes out here, then not only are we can say something and have it come out of our mouth once, and it might affect 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 20 or 100 or 1,000 or whatever number of other people could hear it. But ultimately, we've heard it at least one more time than them. And chances are, if you're going to be saying something in public, you've thought about it a whole lot more than just that time that it came out of your mouth. And, so I think we need to be very careful about what it is that we dwell upon, whether it be internal speak or external. I saw a video clip from Bruce Lee where he said, "Don't speak negatively about yourself, even as a joke." And it makes complete sense. The nervous system does not process sarcasm, as far as I understand it. And if you repeatedly say things like, "I'm old, I'm broken, I'm stupid," and I'm just using those as an example, and I don't want to say them again because my ears still hurt it. Because the reality is, I'm not. I'm still young. I am not broken. I am strong. I do believe that I am smart beyond my years, and in between my ears as well. Haha, get it? Smart beyond my years and smart in between my ears. And I truly do believe that our body will adapt to the identity that we portray in our inner heart, if you will, in our thoughts and our minds. And you don't want to be planting those seeds back into your own fertile soil. And also there was, with that video of Bruce Lee, he pointed out, and whether or not there's actually any factual basis behind this or not, I do find it interesting. He said, the words we talk about, it's called spelling for a reason, and that's because we are casting spells with the words that we use. And so, if you want to improve the outcome of your life, if you want to improve and change a behavior that is leading to bad outcomes, you need to first change the identity. But to change that identity that is you, you have to first change the language that is, number one, coming out of your mouth, but even more importantly, what's going on in your head before it ever leaves your mouth. So anyways, those are some of my thoughts I had from today on my walk while listening to YouTube videos. It's funny, I feel kind of weird talking about other YouTube videos on my YouTube video, but consider what I'm talking about as a condensation of some good ideas that I got to listen to today that I will surely carry forward in my own life, because I want to be more of a positive impact. I want to have a more positive impact on my life. And so, as I wrap things up, I want you to. Uh, I have a closing thought and a statement that I wrote down here, and it goes like this. Today's thought is simple. Take your vitamin W, build from your feet up, and speak to yourself like someone you're trying to keep alive for 120 years. Okay, I'm going to say that once again. Today's thought is simple. Take your vitamin W, get out there, walk 4 or 5 miles a day. It's not hard if you try. Build up your feet and speak to yourself like someone you're trying to keep alive for 120 years. You might just start believing it, and who knows, it might be a good, strong part of the reason why you end up getting there in a body that's healthy, in a body that can reach up to the top shelf and grab down something that he needs to without the help of others, a body that does not need a wheelchair or a walker or even a cane or a walking stick. I don't want any of those things. And, I hope we are living in a world in the future where we don't have to have those things. And don't get me wrong, I look forward to a future where we have medical devices a lot like the ones we have on Star Trek. I would love nothing more than to see all those medical tools and the things that they suggest are in our future. I mean, heck, we've already built food replicators, and we just need to get them small enough to fit in our kitchen. And I joke when I say that, but there are full restaurants right now that you can walk into that actually don't have humans working inside of them. You walk up to a screen, you tap in what you want to eat, and out of the window comes that food that you just ordered, which is exactly like what you see take place happening on the Star Trek, uh, on the Enterprise, the Starship Enterprise. The question is, how long is it going to take to go from being the size of a house to the size of a bread box? I don't know, but the reality is we already have it. We just need to make it smaller. So don't forget, take your vitamin W, walk like you have a deficiency, fix your feet, your words are spells, and start from the ground up, just like, the best way to improve the overall health of a tree. You focus on the roots, and everything else will follow. You want to take care of your body, start with the feet, work your way up, and everything else will follow. In the meantime, I am checking out on this Thursday night, February 26th, 2026. You have a good night. Get some good quality rest. Get out and walk. Get your electrolytes. And I will see you tomorrow evening. Have a good night.